Hey everyone, Yvonne to us with What the Freak. Enduring epic and copious amounts of narcissistic abuse for decades makes you, and overcoming the effects of it, have powerful effects from coming from that to learning how to overcome it, the effects of it. I realized just how damaging it is. We hear the term narcissist, we hear narcissistic abuse, and do we really get what it means, what it's saying? How abusive and damaging it is? Because from lots of experience and lots of research and consulting with a lot of experts on a lot of different things. Now, when I say expert, I'm not putting all my value in expert opinion, because a lot of it's opinion unless it's been experienced. And yes, we can read stuff in a book. Enduring and experiencing is a truth that nobody can shake you from. And it's what made me ask, what the freak? What the freak was going on in my life with hearing about God and getting somebody's telling me who God is, what God is, how to worship him, what he expects. That I have to listen to these appointed men or women and gauge my connection and relationship to God by what they determine it is. So, having endured narcissistic abuse and growing up in a Christian religion was very interesting, because made to read the Bible constantly, nonstop. So I have a pretty good knowledge of what the Bible says, at least a few versions, which is a topic all by itself. And I had allowed others my whole life, growing up that way, growing up in narcissistic abuse, growing up in religion, organized religion. I was reading the scriptures, and yet hearing and seeing nobody really applying what was being said and shared. And so from a young age, it made me ask questions. And when I would question, I would get punished. I would get judged and shamed and guilted and criticized and abused, smacked around, all kinds of abuse. Told I didn't have faith. I just needed to trust in God. And yet go by what they say God says, and what God means, and who God is, and what God is. So that's what I did for decades. And then getting abused so much at home, additionally, constantly. It made me ask why. It made me ask why. And learning what I've learned now and knowing what I know now, I'm grateful that I went through that, because I didn't have the luxury of getting complacent to stop and enjoy the 3D world. Now, I enjoyed it as a teenager and in my early 20s, and had fun after, but not to the toxic degree it was during that time, because I didn't know how to escape the hell that I was constantly surrounded by, knowing that I have a good heart and good intentions, and yet made to feel like such a piece of shit, worth nothing except to serve others and do what I'm told and obey those entrusted positions of authority. You know what I just heard this morning? Again, being a word nerd. Heard this morning what the etymology of the word rebel is. And it's to change frequency. Being a frequency nerd, that blew my mind. Of all the words I've thought to look up, that one I never have, and it makes sense. When we look at the world and the shape it's in, and the people we're trusting and listening to as authority that knows better than we do how to be, who to be, what to be. You think I'm going to listen to grown children who don't have my best interests in mind and take anything they say as truth or for my benefit? I did that. Been there, done that. Grew up in that. And through the research and through experiences in applying what I'm sharing, I feel the power of what is being said and shared, and not by people that haven't looked at themselves first and taken a good look and realized what it takes to love and be a human being. And growing up in so much hypocrisy, I realize if we're applying what our examples that we've been given and shown in each of our cultures, pick one, when we're applying what they say and share, it gets exponentially more easier. For those that are Christian, Galatians 5:22 and 23. The fruitages of the Spirit are love, joy, peace, kindness, goodness, faith, mildness, patience, self-control. Against such things there is no law. Meaning, when we operate in that way, when we operate in integrity, when we are willing to be accountable and responsible for our choices and ourselves and our feelings, and do the right thing by people and by ourselves, protecting ourselves as well, that's a hugely important thing, to protect our power, our free will, life gets way easier. And amazing things show up, and peace especially, because we realize we're creating our reality. So when we operate in that way, we're protected. We're protected. There's your divine protection. Who's applying it? Who's applying? Forgive if we want to be forgiven. Who's applying do not judge, lest you be judged with the same measure you are judging? And who's being taught? We're taught to go to these people that claim to be appointed by God And yet, what example are they setting? Same thing in government. We're being told to listen to these people in these positions. How are they behaving? I mean, seriously. We're listening to them tell us how to live our life, and what's true and real, and what's right and wrong, and what's good and bad, and how to live, and how to be. And yet, look at the example that we're seeing. And it's been tolerated, and it's been accepted as norm. Just like I shared in my last video. In my last video, I get into how and why. How it got to that point. And what I realize, it doesn't end with our ancestry of our parents. Where did narcissism and the victim mentality come from? Who teaches us what words mean and how to use our language? Isn't it the educational system? Are they teaching just how powerful our words are? Are they teaching us to use our language in a way that can bring about exponentially better results and outcomes and choices by learning how to communicate efficiently, effectively with each other? So that we stop assuming and criticizing and judging others as though we're perfect, as though we're somehow absolved and have the right to judge. What have we been taught love is? We go around saying the word. Are we really getting what it means? How many people have read 1 Corinthians 13, the love chapter, and apply what is being shared? Love endures all things, believes all things, hopes all things. Love conquers all. Are we being love to be willing to communicate with each other honestly and genuinely, authentically, and also lovingly, sharing for others' benefit? In my last video, I also covered why we get triggered by truth. And it's because we've been taught to judge it, criticize it, condemn it, shame it. Don't speak the truth, just do what I tell you to. Don't question, just do what I tell you to. Just obey. Obey me because I'm an authority and I say so. There's a lot more going on than many are aware of. And the funny thing is, the powers that be, because they don't want people to know their power, have hidden it and programmed people to be triggered by it. Triggered by love, triggered by trust, truth, triggered by all these things. Why? Because we wouldn't be good little slaves anymore if we remembered who we are as creations made in the image of God. And it wasn't to have adult children who are trying to control and enslave, just like narcissistic abuse will do, and manipulate our perceptions of ourselves and of others. Because if we think back of the Crusades, of the Dark Ages, of the Inquisitions, and then we think of epigenetics and what it says about how it works, how feelings, beliefs are encoded, stories are encoded in our DNA. And go on Spycraft on Netflix and look at episode, I think it's 5 or 6, on covert messages or covert spying, something like that. They flat out say that they used to pass covert messages through people's DNA because Harvard study has shown that DNA understands and responds to language syntax when used correctly. So have we been taught to use our language correctly? You tell me. What are we focused on? What do we think about? Because the words we're using are determining that, which is determining how we feel, what we believe, what we think, and our actions, and shape our perceptions that influence our choices. So who are we trusting to tell us the truth about ourselves and our lives and our world? Just because somebody's in a trusted position of authority, or somebody who will share something for our benefit out of our best interests in mind, and come to know what's actually true and real for us, for our journey. Because again, as I've shared in previous videos about truth, it's going to depend on where we're at and what we're ready to hear as to what truth we will listen to, because the world is a plethora of confirmation bias. Any of us can sit there and go, I can prove, because there's so much BS out there and so many stories and so many different versions of it. So pick one. Pick one. Pick a story. Abracadabra in Aramaic. With my words, I create, and with my words, I influence. For uplifting and inspiring, or for deceiving and enslaving. Our language will do either, and it's keeping us mental and emotional prisoners, internal prisoners. And we look like we're free because there's no bars that we can see. I desire to keep these brief because I get people are busy, and I know these are maybe some new perspectives of that aren't shared very often, because there's not very many people really doing the inner work. They've accepted the status quo. They've accepted their place in their life and where they're at. They're comfortable and complacent. So most people quit looking. And most people only consider those with degrees and titles and letters and followers and money and whatever label that we've been programmed to only listen to. Because I'm just a simple girl from the Midwest. I'm just a po white girl who is from the Midwest, who simply went through a lot and looked for answers as to what the freak was going on, and figured it out for herself, and sharing experiences with others in hopes that they want to save themselves time, money, decades of time, money, and energy. And be able to lead a fun life, be able to understand what's happening in your life and why, and what's attracting it to you so that you can shift it. Because it's simply shifting our words, which shape our perceptions, which shape how we communicate with each other. Most people are assuming, and it's the biggest cause of conflict, I think, anywhere. Because we're not seeking to understand another perspective and own that we may not be right, or we may not have all the answers. But again, going back to the narcissistic abuse and the inherited behaviors that have resulted in where we are now. And we've been taught these things for a long time. So it's like ingrained until we decide to do something about it. Thank you for following me on this journey. Follow the freaks. We all have valuable perspectives and insights for those of us who have really worked on ourselves, who've really learned how to create and manifest our reality. And it's all going to be relative to what we perceive success and happiness and all these things to be. Because our lives aren't perfect, and we're creating better and more all the time because we're learning our patterns and figuring out our whys in our story. And we invite you to do the same and do it with us and help each other in our journeys and co-create and collaborate and have fun being a freak. Because a lot of people want to judge, but who are the happy ones having fun? And who are the ones that are miserable and trying to make others miserable? I may get deep and serious sometimes, but that's because people would think I was nuts if I came on here like, hey, it's okay. You went through narcissistic abuse. You can have fun right out the gate, because these are deep topics and it is challenging until we have a support system of people who genuinely are there for our benefit. Be who you are here to be and navigate your journey and do it in integrity. And that's when we can have fun, because then there's no hidden agendas, ulterior motives. Because we know who we are and we know the frequencies that we resonate with.